Shalom, my friends. Welcome to this week's Word Study. Today, we're going to be talking about family. And I'm going to start off with Tehillah, Psalm 127, verse 1. Reads, "Unless Yahweh builds the house, they who build it labor in vain." My paraphrase on that one is, bust your butt and you bust your butt. Bust your butt and all you get is a busted butt. Unless Yahweh builds your house, then you who build labor in vain. You can't build a house on your own. You'll just be wasting your time. The house must be built by Yahweh. Making Elohim number one on a list of one. Pitching your tent, learning how to pitch your tent with Elohim and learning how he pitches his tent with you. In the book of Joshua, chapter 24, verse 15, we read, "As for me and my house, we will serve Yahweh." Put him first. Sometimes the one who's being served in a house is the head of the house. Everybody does what Daddy says. That's it. Don't cross his path. And other places, the woman's running the house. And unless Elohim is running the house, there is going to be a boatload of problems. Then, in terms of family, we look at 1 Corinthians, chapter 13, verses 4 through 8. Love endures with patience and serenity. Love is kind and thoughtful, and is not jealous or envious. Love doesn't brag. It's not proud or arrogant. When Yahweh is building your house, when you're making Elohim number one on a list of one, your family is operating in love. Love is not rude. Continuing with 1 Corinthians. It's not self-seeking. Not trying to, get what, somebody's trying to get what they want and playing games with everyone else to do it. Love is not self-seeking. It's not provoked. Nor is it overly sensitive or easily angered. And love does not take into account a wrong endured. Oh, you did this to me a long time ago, and I haven't forgotten. That's not love. Love doesn't rejoice at injustice, that's for sure, but rejoices with the truth when right and truth prevail. Love bears all things regardless of what comes. Love believes all things, looking for the best in each one, hoping in all things. Love remains steadfast during difficult times and endures all things without weakening. Times get tough. You love somebody, you don't give up on them and run the other way. You hang in there. And finally, with 1 Corinthians, it closes saying, love never fails. And then in 1 Timothy, that's Timotheus, chapter 5, verse 8, we read, "If anyone does not provide for his own, and especially for those of his own household, he has denied the faith and is worse than an unbeliever." When we see faith, we look at being washed by and growing in the Word. So it's saying that, if someone doesn't provide, for anyone that's under him as a headship, those of his own household, those who are under him, the male head of a house, so on, he's denied the washing of the Word and his growing in the Word, and is worse than an unbeliever. Colossians chapter 3, verses 12 through 16. As the chosen ones of Elohim, who are Kodesh, dedicated to Elohim, and beloved by Elohim himself, put on a heart of compassion, kindness, humbleness of mind, meekness, and patience, which has the power to endure whatever injustice or unpleasantness comes with good temper. Patience has the power to endure whatever injustice or whatever unpleasant thing comes with good temper. You mentioned meekness. Meekness. That word in the original language has to do with horse training. They would say a horse is meek. A horse being a mighty beast, more powerful than a man, or you might say more powerful than its master, who would be a man. And yet that horse will obey every command of its master. And, key point, that horse will not obey the same commands given by anyone else. He only listens to the voice of his master. That is a meek horse. So meekness is, someone who only obeys Elohim and does not listen to the voice of any other. Someone who has patience and endures any injustice or unpleasantness with good temper. Think about these things as a family member in your household. This is how we want to act in love. Bearing graciously with one another and willingly forgiving each other if one has a cause for complaint against another. Indeed, just as Mashiach has forgiven you, so should you forgive. Yeshua said, if you don't forgive others, I won't be able to forgive you. So, if you want your sins, we all have them, to be forgiven by Elohim, make sure that you are not holding grudges against anyone else. Make sure that you have forgiven every offense from any other person in your life. Doesn't mean you have to like them. Doesn't mean you have to be friends with them. Doesn't mean you have to, play up and act, like everything's okay. Just means that you forgive them. The way to forgive somebody is to understand that they didn't know any better. Everybody makes mistakes. And again, you don't have to embrace this person. You don't have to act like everything's okay. Some people you might not want to be around anymore. If you're unevenly yoked, if somebody's an unbeliever, you shouldn't be around them. You shouldn't let them in your house. You shouldn't eat with them, unbelievers. And you can be that way and yet having forgiven them. You do that by prayer. You go before Abba, Father, Yahweh, and you explain the whole thing to him. And you say, I understand, Father, that, they don't know any better. Help me to understand. Help me to let go of this offense and give it to you. Continuing, but above all these things, put on and wrap yourselves in unselfish love. What's unselfish love? You don't have to love somebody just because you're getting something from them or because you want something. For example, family members, you love them because that's your brother. You love her. That's your sister. That's your mother. You love her. That's your father. You love him. That's your daughter. That's your son. That's your husband. Unselfish love, which is the perfect bond of unity. For everything is bound together in agreement when each one seeks the best for everyone else. Let the peace of Elohim, the inner calm of one who walks daily with him, the inner calm that you get by pitching your tent with him, making him number one on a list of one, let that be the controlling factor in your heart, deciding and settling questions that arise. To this peace, to this shalom. Shalom doesn't just mean peace. It's talking about mental, spiritual, emotional, physical, financial prosperity. Prosperity in everything about you and your life. To that indeed you were called as members in one body of believers, and be thankful and grateful to Elohim always. Let the spoken word of Mashiach, Yeshua, have its home within you, dwelling in your heart and in your mind. In other words, permeating every aspect of your being as you teach spiritual things and admonish and train one another with all wisdom. Parents, you teach your children, admonish them and train them with all wisdom. Children, you teach spiritual things to your parents and admonish and train them with all wisdom, with respect and honor, understanding that they are above you. They are your headship. You're not their headship. That doesn't mean that you can't teach and admonish your parents. Goes on saying, singing with pleasure in your hearts to the Adon. Sing with pleasure in your heart to the Adon Yeshua, Abba, Father, Yahweh, in Tehillim, Psalms, and songs of praise, and Ruach-filled songs, Spirit-filled songs, with thankfulness and gratefulness in your hearts to Elohim. As a family, sit down together, have family meetings. Families should spend time together. Today, that almost never is even a consideration. Satan has got everyone so busy. He's the prince of this world, man. He's running this world, and he's got everybody busy, too busy to spend time with family. Everybody's texting. Everybody's living on Facebook. There's no one-on-one. In fact, young people today don't really know how to conduct a one-on-one conversation because they're not familiar with it. It's all this. That's the work of Satan. As a family, you should be sitting down at least once a week. Have a family day. Go over these scriptures that I just went through. Study them together. Now let's look at parents. Proverbs chapter 22, verse 6. Train up your children in the way they should go. Teach them to seek Elohim's wisdom, to know Elohim's will for their abilities and talents. How do you do that? You have word studies with them. Teach them to seek Elohim's wisdom. How? They have to know His wisdom, and the only way to know His wisdom is by knowing His Word. And the only way to know His Word is to be in it every day. It should be more important than other things. And verse 6 closes saying, even when your children are old, they won't turn away from these things. If you train them and raise them up in the Father's Word, they won't turn away from it when they're old. Tehillah, that's Psalm 127, verses 3, 4, and 5. Look, children are an inheritance and a gift from Yahweh. You don't own your children. These are not your children. They are Yahweh's children. Look, children are an inheritance and a gift from Yahweh. The fruit of the womb is a reward. Like arrows in the hand of a mighty man, so are the children of one's youth. I wrote a song titled Sweet Michelle. It's about my daughter. I wrote it when she was like 6 years old, and we weren't in each other's life. And in the song I wrote that Sweet Michelle, she's like an arrow I lost in the sky. Because Abba's word says that our children are like arrows. And, you shoot the arrow into the air and you hope that it makes the mark. I shot one in the air and it disappeared for a while. She's back in my life now and couldn't have a better relationship because because Yahweh's building that house. It goes on in Tehillah, Baruch, that means blessed, happy, fortunate, is the man whose quiver is filled with those arrows. They will not be ashamed when they speak with their enemies at gatherings in public places. Now we look to men. Tehillah, Psalm 1, verses 1 through 3. Baruch, again, blessed, fortunate, prosperous, favored by Elohim, is the man who does not walk in the counsel of the wicked, following their advice and example. Of course, this applies to men, women, everybody. And, Baruch is he who does not stand in the path of sinners, does not walk that way, and does not sit in the seat of scoffers or ridiculers. Some people love to make fun of other people, give them funny nicknames and take them down and insult them at every chance. If you want to be Baruch, you don't sit in that seat. You don't walk on that path. But rather, your delight is in the Torah of Yahweh. And on Yahweh's Torah, what is His Torah? That's His loving instructions to His children. Torah is, basically referring to the first 5 books of the Word, but really it's everything from Genesis to Revelation, Bereshit to Chazon. All of his loving instructions to his children. Torah does not mean law. It's the Father's loving instructions telling us how to avoid the snares and the traps and the deceitful ways of Satan. He who is Baruch, his delight is in Yahweh's loving instructions, and he habitually meditates day and night. It's a habit. From the time you get up until the time you go to bed, it's a habit to always be thinking about the Word. And, this part's beautiful, he will be like a tree, firmly planted and fed by streams of water that yields its fruit in its season, whose leaf never withers, and whatever he does prospers and comes to a full maturity. Titus, that's Titus, chapter 2, verses 6 through 8. Urge your sons to be sensible and self-controlled. You can't have self-control without the indwelling Ruach, Spirit. Urge your children to be sensible and self-controlled, to behave wisely, taking life seriously. Men, you are the head of the house. I just did a video on this, and there's a lot in there that has to do with family as well. If you haven't watched that one, go grab that one, combine it with this one, make these two part of your family studies. But in all things, show yourself to be an example of good works, with purity in doctrine, having the strictest regard for integrity and truth, for being dignified, sound, and beyond reproach in your instruction, so that any opponent of your faith, any opponent of your being washed by and growing in his word, will be put to shame, having nothing bad to say about you or yours. There's one to meditate on. EPHESIANS, that's Ephesians chapter 6, verse 4. Fathers, do not provoke your children to anger. I covered this one in Head of the House. It's worth repeating. Do not exasperate them to the point of resentment with demands that are trivial or unreasonable or humiliating or abusive. It's not your job to lord it over your children. It's your job to teach Elohim, Yahweh's children. It's your job to teach his children with love and sound doctrine. They're not yours, they're his. And this one is powerful. It says, don't show favoritism to any of your children or indifference to any of them. If any parent shows favoritism to this one and that one over there, I really don't care about you, Wow. The one you're showing favoritism to is going to become a jerk when they get older. They're going to think that they are God's gift to the world, to use an old catchphrase. The ones that you're indifferent to, they're going to have a lot of failure in their life because they think they aren't good enough for anyone or anything. Don't do those things. Don't show favoritism or indifference to any of your children, but bring them up tenderly with loving kindness in the discipline and the instruction of the Adon, Yeshua. It's so important the way children are raised. The earlier these Elohim's instructions are applied, the better. Women, take a look at Proverbs, Mishle. Chapter 31, verses 10 through 31 describes the woman. Who finds an excellent woman? One who is spiritual, capable, intelligent, and virtuous. She is worth more than rubies. Who finds such a woman? The heart of her husband trusts in her with secure confidence, and he'll have no lack of gain because of her. She comforts, encourages, does him only good, and never evil all the days of her life. She looks for wool and flax, and with delight she works with her hands. She's like the merchant ships of Tarshish, abounding with treasure and bringing in her household's food from afar. She takes care of her house. She supplies the house. She chooses the food. And it's food that everybody's in love with. Boy, oh boy, my teta, my grandmother, she put food on the table. I mean, when you walked in her house, there wasn't just, you couldn't see the tablecloth. There was so many different kinds of, that table was filled. She worked all day long filling that table with food, and anything that you put in your mouth, as soon as it hit your taste buds, you kind of went insane for a minute. It was so good, you couldn't describe it. She rises also while it's still night and provides food for her household and assigns tasks to her girls. She considers a field before she buys or accepts it, expanding her business prudently. Women, they purchase, they are to conduct business and purchase land and to be successful financially, but it's all based on her family. It's all based on being a beracha, a blessing to her family, to hers. And with her profits, she plants fruitful vines in her vineyard. With her profits, she expands her ability to bring birachot, blessings, to her family. It's all about the family. She equips herself with spiritual, mental, and physical strength and makes her arms strong. In other words, she's healthy. Her body is full of good health. She sees that her gain is good. Her lamp does not go out, but it burns continually through the night. She is prepared for whatever lies ahead. She pays attention to what she's doing for her family. Her lamp doesn't go out. She's working at it all the time. Her lamp burns continually through the night. Light, is reference to the word. She's full of Abba's word, otherwise she can't even approach being this kind of a woman. But she's prepared for anything that may come up, whatever lies ahead. She stretches out her hands to those who are feminine, to the womanly, and her hands hold the spindle as she spins wool into thread for clothing. She's at work creating whatever it is that clothes her family spiritually, mentally, emotionally, physically, nutritionally. She opens and extends her hand to the poor, and she reaches out her filled hands to the needy. She doesn't fear the snow for her household, for everyone in her house is clothed in expensive scarlet wool. Everybody's got what it takes to endure a winter. She makes for herself coverlets, cushions, and rugs of tapestry. Her clothing is linen, pure and fine, and of purple wool. The best of clothing. Not necessarily, in terms, she's wearing, the designer fashions of the day. That's Satan's realm. No, she's dressed elegantly. All of her clothing is of high quality, but never showy. Her husband is known in the city gates when he sits among the elders of the land. That's partly because he has such a wonderful wife. Everybody who knows him knows that he's got an amazing beracha on his life because of his wife. And everybody knows who he is, and he's respected in large part because of her. She makes fine linen garments and sells them, and supplies sashes to the merchants. So she conducts business, and she earns income. Every penny of it is inspired by her plans for her household and her family. Not plans for some, I want to build a corporation and, No, this woman, it's all about her family and her home. Strength, splendor, and dignity are her garments. Her position is strong and secure, and she smiles at the future, knowing that she and her family are prepared. She opens her mouth with skillful wisdom, which comes only from Elohim. How does that happen? Yeshua says, don't plan your words. And when you have an important meeting or something, somebody comes up to you and there's an important conversation about to take place or planned to take place or whatever, Elohim tells us, don't plan your words beforehand. And if you do that, then I will speak through my indwelling Ruach that is indwelling in you. And, this is what's going on here with this most wonderful woman. She opens her mouth with skillful wisdom. Why? Because it's coming from Elohim, not from her. And the Torah of kindness, the loving instruction of the kind one, Yeshua, that is on her tongue. Women who try to express their own intelligence and wisdom, there's not much to admire in there. But a woman like this who opens her mouth and the wisdom of Elohim comes out because she's not planning her words. The indwelling Ruach is speaking. That's Abba Father or Yeshua speaking through her. And so his loving instructions is on her tongue, and it's like, wow, this woman is something special. She looks well to how things go in her household and does not eat the bread of idleness. She doesn't sit around, texting, typing on Facebook all day long, gossiping. No, she doesn't eat the bread of idleness. Her children rise up and call her Baruch, blessed, happy, prosperous, to be admired. Her children admire her. They respect her. They're like, wow, our mother is really something. And her husband, he does the same, saying, many daughters have done nobly and well with the strength of character that is steadfast in goodness, but you have risen above them all. Loveliness, charm, and gracefulness are deceptive, and superficial beauty is vain. But a woman who reveres Yahweh, a woman who worships Yahweh, obeys Him, serves Him, trusts in Him with awe-filled respect, that woman is to be praised. Give her of the fruit of her labors, and let her own works praise her in the gates of the city. Then we look at TITUS, that's Titus chapter 2, verses 3 to 5. Older women, grandmothers, aunts, older women are to be kodesh in their behavior. They are to be dedicated to Elohim in their behavior. They are not to slander or spread malicious gossip. They are not to be given to taking much wine. And they are to teach what is right and good, so that they may train and encourage the young women to tenderly love their husbands and their children. They are to train the younger women to be sensible and pure, makers of a home where Elohim is honored. They are to train the younger women to be good-natured, being subject to their own husbands, so that the word of Yahweh is not evil spoken of and will not be dishonored in their lives. Now we turn to children in the house. We look at the fifth commandment. And as we are told in Ephesians, FCM, chapter 6, verse 1, the fifth commandment is the first commandment with a promise. And that fifth commandment can be seen in Exodus chapter 20, verse 12, where the command from Yahweh is, honor your father and your mother, respect them, obey them, and care for them, so that your days may be prolonged. There's the promise that your days may be full and complete. In the book of Proverbs, chapter 6, verse 20, we read, my son, watch over your father's command. Be guided by his instruction, and do not forsake the Torah of your mother. Never put your mother's loving instructions aside. Colossians, chapter 3, verse 20. Children, obey your parents in all things, for this attitude of respect and obedience is well-pleasing to Yahweh, and will bring you his promised birechot, his promised blessings. Proverbs 11, verse 29, he who brings trouble on his family will inherit wind. That is to say, he who brings trouble on his family will wind up with nothing. Don't ever do anything to bring trouble on your family or on your parents' house. If you do, 1 John 1:9, confess your sins to Abba Father and he will cleanse you. 1 Peter, that's Kepha, chapter 5, verses 5 through 8. You younger men of lesser rank and experience, be subject to your elders. Seek their counsel, and all of you clothe yourselves with humility toward one another. Tie on the servant's apron. For Elohim resists, opposes, and defeats those who are proud. But he gives favor to and pitches his tent with those who are humble. Humble yourselves then, under the mighty hand of Elohim. Set aside self-righteous pride, so that he may exalt you to a place of honor in his service at the appropriate time. Cast all your cares, all your anxieties, all your worries, all your concerns, once and for all on him, because he cares about you with deep affection, and he watches over you very carefully. Be sober, well balanced and disciplined. Be alert and cautious at all times, because that enemy of yours, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion, seeking someone to devour. Understand this, my young friends. Satan has worked extremely hard and very diligently at destroying the idea of family in this world. And he's been extremely successful at it. He owns the school system, where he causes young people to learn his ways instead of Elohim's ways. And he rules the corporations and workplaces, where he continues the promotion of what he taught the younger people in earlier times through the school systems. The idea of respecting your elders has been erased from the consciousness of younger people. Why? Because it promotes absolute wickedness. And what is wickedness? Wickedness is not just some mean, nasty person. In the language of Elohim, wickedness, being wicked, simply means going your own way instead of the way, tzad, the narrow path. Instead of walking the narrow path, which is difficult because all your friends don't want you doing that. They want you to, party with them. But if you don't go on the narrow path, you go your own way, that's being wicked. And that's what Satan loves. He wants to promote absolute wickedness. He wants you to think that you know it all and your way is the only way. Remember the first commandment that comes with a promise? Honor your father and your mother. Respect them, obey them, and care for them so that your days may wind up being full and complete. Satan, he's got the younger generation, they don't have any real respect for older people because Satan has fixed it up so that, they weren't raised that way. He's fixed it up so that they haven't spent a lot of time with their family. They haven't spent a lot of time with their parents. They haven't received the proper counsel from their parents. Instead, he's got them being counseled and raised by the school system. And a lot of parents, they rely on that. Whatever, children have been raised without the ways of Elohim, without the Word. And so they have no natural understanding of respecting older people. And that's the work of Satan, Shaitan. Let's look at his title here. His name, it's not a name. Satan is a descriptive title. And in the Aramaic Hebrew, it's Shaitan, from Strong's 7854. It means adversary. A good way of describing this descriptive title in English would be prosecuting attorney. The guy who comes in and accuses everybody of sinning. That's what he does. Goes to Abba Father and he goes, oh, look at this guy, look what he did. Look at that guy, look what he did. Read the book of Job. Eov. He went before Yahweh and he says, this guy, you take away this, that, and the other thing, and he's not going to love you. He's acting like a prosecuting attorney. It's Shaitan is spelled Shin Tet Nun. Shaitan. The Aramaic Hebrew is easy to read and pronounce once you start getting the hang of it. Shaitan. Shin Tet Nun. Sh-T-N. Shaitan. Shin, picture of two front teeth. Sharp, cutting, pressing. Tet, picture of a basket used to catch fish or to contain and store things. Nun, picture of a seed, has to do with life, unstoppable motion, has to do with offspring and heirs. So, Shaitan is all about cutting Yeshua's sheep from his flock. He's been cursed by Elohim to bite the heel of Yeshua's followers. Look at Genesis, Bereshit, chapter 3, verse 15. Why the heel? To mess up their walk. He wants to separate them from Yeshua's flock and gather them into his own camp, his own basket, to contain them and store them in his realm of darkness. He wants to steal whatever he can from them, to kill them, and to destroy them. And he also wants to create his own seed, which he's been trying to do from the very beginning with his fallen malachim, the Nephilim, fallen ones who mated with women. Genesis chapter 6, it'll be right there. Now, to all the family members, look at Ephesians chapter 6. Verses 11 and 12. EPHESIANS, chapter 6, 11 and 12. Put on the complete armor of Elohim. I have a video about this. Type in armor in the search tool on my channel. You'll see it. For his precepts, Elohim's precepts, are like the splendid armor of a heavily armed soldier. Why? So that you may be able to successfully stand up against all the schemes and the strategies and the deceits of the devil, your enemy, especially your young ones. I had a conversation once with Hashatan. Long time ago. He appeared to me. He was reclining on a staircase, dressed like a prince, long, curly, black hair, full of pride. And he just looked at me and he says, "You desire me, don't you?" Meaning, you know, like he did with Yeshua, the 40 days and nights in the desert, where he showed Yeshua all the glory of the world. You know, the cities, the shining lights, the money and the cars and the women and the jewels, everything. He says, you know, you desire me, meaning all the things of the world. And I looked at him and I says, you know, I used to, but not anymore. And he didn't even hear what I said. He didn't give it any recognition at all. He just puffed up with more pride and he says, well, he says, the young ones do. And he's right. When you're in your teens, in your 20s, and even in your 30s, you desire the things of the world. You haven't learned enough yet. Trust the old man. He knows. You know, wanting a fancy house, a, you know, nice Maserati, jewels, fancy clothing, all the things that money can buy. These are ways of desiring Shaitan, because that's his world. The world of Elohim makes all of that look like a garbage dump. But nobody knows that yet. Anyway, let's go on with Ephesians. You know, allows the armor of Elohim allows you to successfully stand up against all the schemes and strategies and the deceits of the devil. Again, I have a video. Type in armor in my search tool on my channel. Not the one at the top of YouTube, but the little one, picture of a magnifying glass next to the About tab or whatever on my YouTube channel. Type armor in there, you'll see it. And study this, how to put on the armor of Elohim with your family, because it will help you to successfully stand up against all the schemes and strategies and deceits of Hashatan. Because our struggle is not against flesh and blood. You know, you get into an argument with somebody and then you get angry with them. This needs to be remembered. That argument and that struggle had nothing to do with you and your brother, you and your sister, you and your mother, your father, whatever. Our struggle, that struggle is not about flesh and blood. It's not against them. We contend not only with physical opponents, brother, mother, sister, father, whatever, but even more importantly, against principalities and authorities, against the rulers and the powers and the worldly forces of the darkness of this age, against the spiritual forces of wickedness Those going their own way, not the way, demons, Satan's crew, in the Shamayim, in the heavens. You get into an argument with one of your siblings or your parents, that argument was inspired by demonic forces. They want you to disobey your parents. They do not want you to get into the Word. They do not want you to have a relationship with Elohim. They want you to love the things of this world because they want to kill you. They want to steal your eternal position with Elohim away from you, and they want to destroy everything about you because they're jealous of what you've been given. But you have an argument with someone. An argument starts up. It was inspired by demonic forces in the first place, whispering in somebody's ear. You know, he said that day, and he shouldn't do that. That's wrong. Yeah, that's right. You start agreeing. Not all your thoughts are your own. Some of your thoughts are yours. Some of them are from your guardian malachim, angels. Some of them are from demons that you've attached yourself to through various bad experiences that starts when you're a baby and moves on. But a demon starts whispering, and he keeps reminding you, and you get agitated, you get angry. Then you see that person, and you're angry. It could be over absolutely nothing. This demon got you thinking that they said something and meant this, and they don't even know what you're talking about because that never happened in their mind. But the demon fed you, and then, you know, you attack. They're like, what's up with him? And they attack back, and their demons are going at, and then this big fight wells up. Listen, our battle is not against flesh and blood, but against spiritual principalities. There is a spiritual warfare going on, and you think these two people are arguing with each other. No. There's a demonic warfare going on, just trying to steal souls away. How? By destroying love, by destroying family. And, you know, that's what the devil wants. He hates us. He can't believe that Abba Father is going to give us a gift that he wishes he could have and never will. At any rate, that's our study for this week, my friends. I hope this has been a beracha to you and yours. I hope and I pray so. And I hope and I pray that you sit down with your family. Somehow, I know it's difficult now more than ever before in all of history. It's not easy to have a family meeting every week. It's the most difficult thing on earth to do. Why? Because we are in the last 5 minutes of history. We are at the end. The devil is full-blown warfare. Nobody has time for anything. Everybody's looking at their cell phones. They're not even looking in people's faces anymore. You can't sit down. But you really want to be a family? Have a family meeting once a week. And spend the evening talking to each other and studying His Word. Abba willing, I'll see you here again next week. Until then, shalom, my friends.
Now 2,000 years have gone by, it's another working day. Some would rather let it lie, but the question still remains.